All right, welcome back. I'm Corinne Shalvoy, joined by Russell Ditzworth, and we are talking to more runners ahead of the Leadville 100 run this year. And today we are joined by Reid Burrows. Reid, I have a brother-in-law named Reid who also spells it the same way, so that's pretty cool. I feel like I kind of know you through that. But yeah, we are excited to chat with you. And I think starting with just tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from. I believe you're Canadian. I don't know exactly from where, but yeah, for folks that might not know you, maybe just a super brief history of you as a person and as a runner.
Okay. Hey, I'm Reid Burrows. I run for Merrell now, but I'm from Canada. So basically, I'm from the East Coast, which is near Maine for anyone in the States that doesn't know New Brunswick or the geography. I spent a bunch of time in Ontario, which is where I got into trail running. And I actually came from a triathlon background. So that was what kind of got me into trail running is that I just wasn't having fun with those 30-hour training weeks anymore. And I just started running on the trails and really fell in love quickly and had some immediate success in Canada. I haven't quite had that kind of success over here in the States yet, but definitely like chipping away on trying to make that happen. And yeah, I'm here on a visa, so my time may be limited here, so I'm just trying to make the most of my time in the States, just in case I can't renew that.
Totally. Are you on an L1 or I come from an HR background, so I know a little
Uh,
bit about visas.
so it's called an O1A, which is
Oh, and
actually nicknamed the unicorn visa
ooh,
because it's so hard to get.
okay. Sweet. Well, congrats on getting that.
Thanks. Yeah.
And so, yeah, speaking about that a little bit, you moved to Leadville back in April, and I believe specifically to train for this race. So, tell us just a little bit about that thought process going into it, and have you done anything else, here in Colorado? Like we saw maybe have helped out with some of the Colorado Trail FKT efforts, or like other involvement in things since you've been living here in Leadville.
Yeah. Yeah, I helped with Kyle get his FKT on Colorado Trail. I know his girlfriend quite well, Sarah, and
Hmm.
she reached out and asked me if I could help. And initially, it was dropping off pizza from one of the pizza places in town, and then it turned into me pacing them like 22 miles. And I'm also really bad at the math between kilometers and miles, so I kept on thinking we were closer than we were because I was tired too. It's a long way when you're up there at like 12,000 feet, just kind of trucking along. And Kyle got a few chuckles out of me because we went over this snow patch as well, and I kind of panicked going over that. Um, I'd most recently also paced my buddy at Hard Rock. He's the manager at 7,000 feet in Salida.
Oh yeah,
Um,
cool.
and so yeah, he had a successful day and finish, and I got to go up Engineer Pass with him, which was super
Nice.
cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've definitely been trying to connect with the community a little bit more. I'm definitely a bit of like keep to myself, put my head down, train hard type of person, but it has been nice to be involved in a few of these projects. And also helped crew the guy who helps me with all my content at Silver Rush, and he got a spot into Leadville for next year at Silver Rush, which was pretty cool to be a part of because he's been up here. He comes up like once a month and helps me do content, and like we've built a really good friendship. He helped me do. He actually did the documentary, the Leadville documentary last year, and then this year he's been up doing kind of everything with me because that's kind of the worst part of being a professional runner, in my opinion, is taking all the pictures and all the content and posting it. So he's been really helping me with that and making it like I'm actually having fun with it now that we're doing it together, which is kind of cool.
That's amazing. And to your point, and not I don't know if everyone knows this, but in those races, the Silver Rush and Leadville Trail Marathon, if you earn that coin, you don't have to run the race in a month. You can defer the next year, and so that's cool that you helped him get there and do that. Um, I was hoping you could maybe talk a little bit about your race last year, how it went. I know that you were up in the field. I know, like maybe within the top two or leading the race into Winfield, and then coming back. Maybe had some things go on that affected your race. Can you talk a little bit about your race last year and kind of what you're looking at doing this year that might be different?
Yeah, so last year I took over the lead maybe a little early. It was kind of forced in my opinion. Like JP just went through some stomach stuff. Like he just wasn't moving, and I went by him, and it was like it was at Outward Bound, just less than
Mhm.
25 miles in, and I went by him as soon as we left the grass and got back onto pavement before we get back onto dirt again. And it was just like I guess this is my move. So
Mhm.
um, he was he was still running but very slowly. And last year I did a lot of my workouts on that pipeline section, and I just knew how to run fast on that section. So I just cranked it, and I was like, I'm just gonna make him think that this is like his day's over. So I kind of cranked it, and then once I got into the trees, I definitely like backed off, and Matt Vera caught me just before we descended down into Twin Lakes. I think it's Matt Vera.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure that's his name.
You and Matt
Um,
were right around 8 hours at Winfield, I think.
yeah, so we led into Twin Lakes together, which is probably one of the coolest memories of my entire running career, because it's much like Forest Hill is at Western States. Like it's just a big party. Everyone has their tents there. There's so much support. Most people have like 10 people there. So I left Twin Lakes tied for first on the way out, and
Nice.
got over Hope like fine. JP caught me kind of right before the 1-8 station that's on Hope. And I went up over Hope in third, got down to Winfield. At that point, Matt was dropping out. So I ended up moving up to second as I'm like leaving Winfield,
Mhm.
which was kind of mind boggling to me because that's a pretty, I mean, you're halfway through the race and I was still in second. But there's like a pretty big pack of guys that were coming for me, including Rob Cryer, which I didn't realize had dropped out, but he's also Canadian for a lot of people that don't know. And I thought he was going to just absolutely smash the backside of Hope and come and catch me. But Scott Trayer and
Mhm.
I forget who else caught me kind of where there's some stream crossings on the way up the backside of Hope. So I like came back into Twin Lakes in fourth. But yeah, like Hope was really hard for me. I've lived at sea level my entire life and spent a year in Salida and then 5 weeks camping out up here. And it just wasn't enough. Like I just didn't feel comfortable pushing myself at altitude. So I couldn't really take calories in for that entire stretch I just described from Twin Lakes back to Twin Lakes, which really impacted my day. But I picked up Eli Hemming at Twin Lakes,
Oh.
and Eli is one of the best runners in the world right now. And he basically just forced me to run a little faster than I wanted to, and forced me to eat. Um, and he also came from a triathlon background, so I've known him for over a decade.
Yeah.
Um, so that was really, really helpful. He brought me to a Canadian buddy who basically had the hardest job of the day, was because I was kind of done when I got to Outward Bound on the way back. I was still in fourth, but it was just my stomach was gone at that point. I was pretty miserable, and we just kind of rallied.
He wasn't as mean to you as Eli was.
I don't think he had a choice. I just had nothing left. So we went up power line. I moved to fifth, I think, and then got into May Queen, which is the last aid station with like 13 miles to go. Still in fifth. Right before that, there's a little Colorado Trail section that's pretty gnarly, and
Mhm.
just started throwing up everything.
Oh.
And it was basically just like try to run, trip on some roots and rocks, or and then walk a little, throw up a little from May Queen all the way to the finish. And I like held on for eighth, but it was like quite the like I don't know how I would have done it without a pacer, to be completely honest. Like it was, I think I would have sat at May Queen for like an hour if I didn't have a pacer with me, especially with Leadville where they're allowed to mule for you. Like I wasn't carrying anything. I didn't even have a bottle in my hand, I don't think, because it was just like that's the beauty of Leadville is that you have your pacers can mule for you, so they can carry a little bit more food, a little bit more fluid than you maybe think you might need. And yeah, we would I remember going up the boulevard. They had all these signs of the past winners, the entire boulevard. And basically, we'd have, he was forcing me to run between one sign and the next sign. And then I was allowed to walk between the sign and the following sign. And
until
we
the next
basically just,
champion.
yeah, and then we just did that all the way up into 6th Street. And I finished around like midnight, I think. It was like 20
20
hours.
hours.
But yeah, it was, I think like the most disappointing part of the day was that I knew I was fitter than what the 20-hour performance showed. And I think that's like just coming into this year, a lot of people have asked me like what my goal was and or is, sorry, and in the last 11 months it's only been to win. Like I'll be completely honest, that's what gets me out of bed and stuff. But as I've gotten closer to the race, the most important goal for me is just to leave it all out there, to be able to like showcase the person and athlete that I've become in the last 11 months, because I think I'm like 1% of the person that stood on that start line last year.
So how has the altitude been feeling in the training leading up, especially since, spending the last 4 months in Leadville?
April and May were really rough. Uh, but I went back to Canada, did a 50K, had no turnover, had an okay day. Went significantly slower than I had raced in that race previously. But when I came back up here, um, it was like, wow, I feel like $1,000,000 now. And since June, I've just been putting my head down, been doing workouts up like Albert. Like today, after this call, I'm gonna go do a workout up Albert, which is the highest mountain in Colorado, um, with poles. Just like, yeah, kind of. It's it's kind of wild just how much emphasis I've put on high altitude, pushing myself even higher than the highest point on the course, which is like 12,500 feet. I've been just, yeah, using poles and going up to 12, 13, 14,000 while pushing myself, doing like max VO2 efforts or tempo efforts up these like pretty gnarly mountains. And it's been weird because of how slow it is, but every time I like hop back down to like 10,000 feet and do something a little flatter, a little faster, I'm kind of blown away with how much I still have the turnover and how strong I feel climbing without poles and when I'm running now, just because I just did a comparison between the 2 years uh, on Instagram, more just for my own sake. Actually, my entire Instagram is just for me, unless it's a sponsored post. It's like to go back and like really remember why I did stuff. And I've climbed 21,000 more meters this year between June 1st and August 4th than I did last year at this point, which is like 66,000 feet. And
Mm.
all of like a lot of that has also been above tree line, which is just given me a lot of confidence in knowing that I'm probably not going to sit down on a rock for a minute going up Hope this year.
That's awesome. And then probably also the opposite, the eccentric loading and the quads, right? For the descents, all that climbing, you have to go back down unless you're
Yeah,
taking gondolas from the top. So that'll be super exciting to see kind of how that translates into this year. And also just, yeah, like you're saying, the kind of the thought of let's get above 10,000 to make 10,000 feel easy. But it does definitely take some, I think, like just trusting it, because at the time of doing it, it doesn't feel like maybe you're doing anything to improve fitness, but then you go lower and it kind of shows itself. So that sounds like you've been yeah, we saw kind of your Strava. We were talking a little bit about that, like to the degree you want to share. It looked like you were on Strava, off Strava. Can you tell us a little bit about your thought process in using the tool? And then Russ can do the second part of the question, because he saw something very cool.
Um, so April and May, I was posting most of my stuff on Strava, and I was like, okay, like I kind of feel really slow up here. Like
Mm-hmm.
everything's just so much slower, and there's like, I mean, Courtney doesn't post anything. Noah Williams lives up here, is like super fast. And it's like there's a few people that post their stuff that are really fast up here, but they're also not doing 100 milers. They're doing like
Mm-hmm.
shorter stuff. And I just was finding it wasn't like a helpful tool for me anymore. So I retroactively took everything off from April and May,
Mm-hmm.
which took probably an hour. Like I had to go in and like manually make them all private. And then since then I've just like thrown a few runs up there. Just
Selectively, just like I saw
yeah,
you had like a Hope Pass, and then you had another one like an out and back on Powerline from May
yeah,
Queen that you threw up there. So just give a little flavor of what you're doing on Strava.
yeah. And I mean like I am a professional athlete. I am like a like I have the double chevron thing on Strava, and technically I'm supposed to post everything according to the
Oh,
Strava
that's
Pro
interesting.
rules.
The pro
Um,
badge requires you to post everything?
that's what they say, like when they
Yeah.
first like give it to you. So
Hmm.
I thought just keeping the occasional run up there wasn't the worst idea. Um, and like you have to, I'm coached by Dimitri Mateev. He runs for Adidas,
Mhm.
and he like I don't even know what I'm doing half the time. Like I have to like pull out my phone during a workout. So I, I'm okay with posting a decent amount of my stuff as long as I'm not like fully sharing the details, because like I have it in front of me, and I sometimes don't fully understand what I'm doing and have to like pull it out to see what the next step is in the workout, because it's just there's a lot of he's very scientific. Like I'm taking lactate. I've been in the lab 4 times for
Okay.
like metabolic testing since we first started working together. And um yeah, like textbook wise, I'm basically like shifting all the graphs to the right, which is what I need to do, just both in terms of lower lactate, lower heart rate for the same effort.
Is the
Um,
metabolic data matching up with how you're feeling at altitude, and has that like tracked along with it to help support like, okay, yes, this is, physiologically helping, and it backs up what I'm feeling.
yeah, so I went into the lab 2 days before I paced my buddy at Hard Rock, which meant I got to do a big old circle around Colorado because I had to go down to Colorado Springs and then over to the San Juans. But it was the best. It was the biggest confidence booster that I've had since moving up here. Was going down there like I'm over a gram a minute of fat burning, from basically like 140 heart rate to like 172. I'm over a gram. So basically, like any spot that I'm going to be racing for Leadville, I'm over a gram a minute of fat burning, which is like, I
Very
mean,
efficient.
conventional wisdom was that a gram was the max, and I'm over a gram. So it just gave me a lot of confidence that the program is working. And I think it's scary when you move up to 10,000 feet and you're going like a minute slower per kilometer per mile or whatever, like on most days. So yeah, it was just like quite the confidence booster for me. And
I'm glad you're
yeah,
trusting the work. Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Okay,
I think,
the other thing I saw on Strava, sorry, don't mean to interrupt you
yeah,
here. The other thing I saw on Strava was this might be a record in terms of what I've seen, but I think you had like 75 different pairs of shoes loaded and they were all Merrell. So obviously there's some doubles in there, and I don't know if you even track it to that degree, but
No, it's all
I thought it
tracked.
was I thought it was incredible, and I wanted to give you a chance to talk about maybe some of the Merrell shoes that you've been training in and what you're going to race in on the day.
So basically, I reached out to Merrill when I was just an ambassador in Canada, and I said, I think doing a shoe change at JFK is the stupidest thing in the world. Why don't we just make a plated shoe that is like 90% of the way there for the AT and then kind of perfect for the canal? So we started on this project in 20 or 2 years ago. Like September will be 2 years. And I'm on like probably the 20th iteration of that shoe. Like I have a
Okay.
shoe I'm racing in that I'm 99% sure I'm the only one in the world with a shoe in that color scheme with those plates in it, in that foam. Um, Even like no one else on the Merrill team even has it. So it's been like my project since the beginning, which is why you see so many shoes because 20 of those 70 or 50 pairs of shoes or whatever are prototypes. And like sometimes I'll get a prototype that doesn't really work for me and I have to kind of
Those
move
are the
on
one with
pretty
10
fast.
miles and down the
Yeah,
list.
yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah, like I I try not to wear the same shoe back to back. But yeah, like the biggest thing with why that list is so long is because I've been doing a lot of prototype sampling, and I think like it's just that people don't realize how long it takes for a
To
shoe to
get.
come to market, and I think a lot of people, especially in the plated side of shoes, just like threw them into the world too fast. They weren't quite ready. Whereas like I'm telling you, when this shoe comes out, it's gonna be the fastest shoe on the market. I do know that. Like I have full faith in that. And I've been in some competitor shoes. I'm obviously not going to say which ones, but I've been in some plated competitor shoes, which are
Uh, what's
if you really dig into the Strava, into the names, there might be some ways to figure it
some
out,
hints?
some hints, because I'm not like I'm relatively smart, but like I can't completely nickname them, so they're like they're completely hidden because I need to remember which one's what. But yeah, like a lot of those are
Secret
prototypes, and
codes.
yeah, but I like in my rotation, I try to still use stuff that's in the market. I just got a pair of all white long sky twos, which is like our one of our like bread and butter shoes. I raced Run Rabbit in it in 2022, and I love them right now. I don't know if it's because it's the all white or what, but like I've been wearing them. I got them last week in the mail, and I think I've worn them like 4 times since then. Um, yeah, so but the big thing is I'll be racing in an unreleased prototype on race day. I have a few backups as well. Like
Well, now I'm super curious. What's your guess to a release? Obviously, you don't have much control over that piece of it, but you've been working on a prototype for 2 years. What's your guess for a release for a Merrell Trail Super Shoe?
I think we'll see it in 2025.
Cool, cool.
Um,
We'll keep a lookout.
I feel like we're going to
and
see
this year,
a handful of releases around UTMB this year too, potentially, and then it'll be like, yeah, 2025. I feel like there's going to be so many crazy shoes coming out. It's going to be wild.
like I really hope I want it to go to market because I think we can just stamp a two on it with the tweaks we have to make from here on out. Like I think it is ready. Um, it's just like there's a few material things that we might change based on like where I'm at now and when it comes to market. We kind of went most expensive possible on everything, and that's not always what can go to market because obviously we have to make it competitive with what other brands are doing, and that they made the best for me. Yeah, we didn't compromise anywhere, and now we just have to like figure out what we need, what we can tweak to make performance not decline, but make it competitive with what these other brands are doing with their super shoes for the trails.
Yeah. Yeah, we could probably do a whole podcast about your experience going through that whole process because that's super interesting of 2 years of how to make tiny little tweaks to refine it. But that's very cool. We will look for that shoe. We'll be out there cheering, and we have a number of people from our local run club racing this year. Both Russ and I have run Leadville, but we aren't running this year. But we'll be out supporting. So it's going to be a great race. Last question for you here is just if you are open to, and I think you alluded to it earlier, of just kind of sharing what your goal is for this year.
I mean, my goal is to win, but the real goal is to also just leave it all out there. And
Yeah.
if that means eighth again or fifth again or fifth this year, third or second or first, I'm kind of open to whatever. It'll inform if I stay here or not, though. I will say that.
Oh, wow.
Like right now, my lease is till December 1st, and I think not stay in the US, but stay in Leadville. Like I might commit to another year up here if I don't feel satisfied with the result I put out.
So last thing on that, because this was a question we had in there too, was just what is it about Leadville? Because you've run other hundreds, I guess according to, ultra sign up and stuff. So what is it specifically about Leadville that like you love so much or keeps drawing you in?
I kind of wrote 2 races down on my visa application, and one was Leadville and one was Western States. And I just feel like Leadville is a stepping stone to Western States for me personally. I don't think it is for everyone, and I feel like I need to check that box before I move on and start my states campaign.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and super excited to follow your race here in less than a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Best of luck out there, Reid.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Good luck, Reid. We'll be rooting for you. Cheers.